I didn't think we were going to get another 2-game NBA slate, but we got bailed out by the basketball gods. Game 7, Clippers, Nuggets going on tonight. Kicking off the Eastern Conference Finals as well, Celtics and the Heat. I am Josh Engleman. I am joined by Adam Scherer. We are brought to you by No House Advantage. Adam, what's going on?
I'm much excited to have one more 2-game basketball slate to talk about. I was already not enjoying having nothing but showdown slates, so glad we get one more.
Yeah, you and me both. I'm excited for this one. I'm excited to watch both of these games. It's going to be nice to see the Celtics get a different look now with the Heat. And then it's going to be really fun to watch to see if the Nuggets can pull this one out again. Another Game 7, another just full-on cardiac kids type thing for Denver. So let's start here. Who wins, Denver or the Clippers?
Clips.
Yeah, agreed.
But like Lofty said this morning, I've also thought that in every other game. So
also true, which is, also what you're supposed to be doing when they're 7.5-point favorites. Otherwise, I hope you're betting on the money line.
Right.
Who wins, Celtics or Heat?
Heat.
Ooh, interesting. Okay, I'm on Celtics here.
In this particular game. I just think that the rest makes a difference.
Okay, good to know. James Cannon with the super chat. Appreciate it, man. Thank you very much. Question is just simply Gary Harris, ? I promise you we will get there, but the answer is kind of.
Yes.
Yeah. There's not a lot of no answers. You're going to have to really pick some truly egregious plays. But first and foremost, as you come in the door, hit the thumbs up. Helps us out a ton. Subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell. We have basketball content, baseball content, football content. It just doesn't stop around these parts. So you don't want to miss it. Make sure you're subscribing. Dave with the super chat, not our typical Dave, a better Dave, honestly. Fade PG.
I don't think so.
Yeah, we're going to get there. We're going to get to all of this stuff. That one's going to be tough as well. But we'll dig into Clippers Nuggets second. Let's first start with the Boston Celtics and the Miami Heat. Celtics 2-point favorites right now. And we're going to start with this first guy. And I have a player prop for you, courtesy of No House Advantage. Jason Tatum, 34.5 points plus rebounds. How do you feel about that bad boy?
34.5 points plus rebounds?
Correct.
Can we do math this early?
This early? It's 5:34 p.m.
In the show.
Oh, okay.
You said it was what, 34.5?
Yes.
I have 35.2.
Okay. Let's see what I've got here. I have 35.0. So
you hate Jason Tatum, but you think you should take the over?
Well, I mean, I'll just assume that 35.0 is infinitely more accurate given your history in prop contests against me. But
I should probably lower it a little bit.
Yeah, you definitely need to come down about 0.2. Let's just start with the usage hogs of Boston. Jason Tatum, Kemba Walker, to a lesser extent Jaylen Brown, or depending on which series this is. Who do you like most out of the top? Kemba Walker picking up the most ownership across both sites, 59% on FanDuel, 41% on DraftKings.
So, I mean, obviously, I like Tatum the most. He's just the best player that they have. He's going to get his usage. He's going to contribute in other areas. He's going to play huge minutes. All that stuff is great. I do think, and I talked about it this morning, I was hoping the ownership on Kemba would be lower than it is, because I think it's a decent bounce back spot for him in some respects. So Miami obviously is still a very, very good defensive team, and they can limit Kemba. So far in the postseason, they've been the most efficient team defending the pick and roll. Going back to the regular season, they allowed the 6th fewest pick and roll possessions per game. It's not a good matchup for Kemba, but the reason that I was hoping maybe people would shy away from him after the Toronto series was Toronto was basically just scheming to keep him from doing anything. They were running really weird defensive schemes. You were seeing box and one, like focusing on Kemba. My assumption going into this series, at least until I see otherwise, is that if Miami schemes to take one person away, it's going to be Jason Tatum, not Kemba Walker. And so I think while Kemba finished that Toronto series with a 20% usage rate, his usage rate for the season without Gordon Hayward and with Tatum and with Brown is 27.7%. So I think you see a bounce back for him as far as usage goes and as far as his production goes. And his salary didn't really increase while the salaries of the other guys did that played well against Toronto. So I think it's a nice bounce back spot for Kemba. That said, if the entire field agrees with me, it's not like like I said, it's not like it's a great matchup against Miami. So I'm still fine, going to some other players and hoping that Kemba just gives you a mediocre game. So ownership really dependent for me on Kemba, but I think it is worth pointing out that you can probably expect him to get at least a bit more usage than he was averaging against Toronto.
I was really surprised to see him be up at 41% with, Jalen and Tatum both in the 20s. Makes me like Tatum a little bit more, although there is a very, very limited amount of value on the slate. FanDuel, a little bit different just because of the way the positions are shaking out. Ultimately, I'm going to end up kind of neutral on the top end of the Celtics, which is a little bit different than what I've been getting previously to Toronto. I guess the question for me is this: who's guarding Kemba in like a natural sense from the Heat? I can't really figure out who I expect that to be.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. Granted,
just Dragic.
I haven't given it a ton of thought because I don't really think about individual defenders that much. But
same.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the thing with Miami is they have so many guys that could do it. Like Bam could do it, but I don't think that he will, at least primarily.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Like the thing is though, and it's one of the reasons that, and I know you pretty much agree, like that I don't worry too much about individual defenders is whoever it is, if it's not working and Kemba's torching them, they're going to just switch it up. Like they have so many guys that are good defenders.
Yeah, I was trying to map it out in my head of where they were going with it, and I just couldn't figure out what the natural spot was. And if it was Dragic, like I think it's obviously a plus matchup for Kemba. I just don't know how long they go to it and what the fix is if they try to go to a different direction. Who is the guy that they try to transition onto him?
Like if Kemba's torching them, you'll end up seeing Bam on him, and like if he's torching them to the extent where like he's winning the game for Boston.
Yeah, you would think. Let's talk about the rest of the guys that actually get minutes. That would be Marcus Smart, Daniel Tice. Both guys around 30% owned on DraftKings. Tice 35 on FanDuel, Smart 43. I don't have much to add on these guys either. Like to me, the main guys for Boston are all, but relative to their salary, pretty equal.
Yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at too. I ran a crunch before the show, and so I'm not playing 150 lineups tonight. I'm doing my 3-max stuff, but I still see where I'd be at if I were playing 150. And the only guy that I would really be over on from Boston, it looks like, at least with our ownership right now, is, well, from the main guys, is Jason Tatum. I have like 42%. We have him projected at 29%. So
you said from the main guys.
Yeah.
Who's the non-main guy?
Robert Williams.
Whew, okay. I don't know what's going on here. I mean, the $3,400 price tag, I had to walk him back to 13 minutes to just stop him from being in basically everything that I do.
Oh, yeah,
Can we talk about him a little bit?
Yeah, it's so to kind of finish off what I was saying, I think Boston's efficiently priced. There is some value on this slate, not that's great, but that is cheap enough that you can get to guys like Tatum, and I think that's why, like, I'm getting a lot of Tatum. I'm getting a ton of, from the later game of Jokic and Kawhi, so I'm not really having issues paying up for those guys. So I'm not really surprised. Like Tatum to me does project as the best guy of that group. As far as Robert Williams goes, it's really just, I think, mostly a roster construction thing for me. He's not getting a ton of ownership. We only have him at 16% right now.
Yeah.
The lower mid-range or upper value, however you want to phrase, like the $4,000 to like $5,000 price range, is basically trash. Like I think Zubats is good, but other than that, you're just talking about a lot of like low point per minute guys. Gary Harris, Jeremy Grant. These guys, they have a role. Like they're still going to play big minutes. They're fine if they're in your lineup, but I don't feel like I'm really sacrificing a whole lot if I go from them to someone that is really volatile and I'm really unsure of, but going down to that like Robert Williams, Kelly Olynyk range and just getting the extra, getting some extra money. So I think that because of the low ownership on Williams right now, even if I do give him like 14, 15 minutes, he projects around 15, 16 points. I have him at 16. Alex has him at 15. We're in the same range there.
I had him in that range too until I just had to like make it not be that.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, if I was playing 150, maybe I'd scale it back a little bit. But I mean, I have 30% right now. Like I'd be fine with that.
I have 40.
Yeah, I have 50 on Olynyk. So that would be terrifying. But again, it just kind of goes to, I think, how my roster construction is going.
Well, then let's just get into that piece too, because nobody's listening to get takes on Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo. You are heavy on Kelly Olynyk.
Yeah, and it's the same thing basically as Robert Williams. Like Olynyk, I think his median minutes are probably like 13, 14, 15, like somewhere in that range.
Sure.
He could play more. This is a different matchup for Miami. Obviously, it's the first game of the series. I'm awful at guessing what Spoelstra is going to do from a matchup standpoint. And Miami,
I feel so good about that, by the way. Like anybody that ever thinks that like they're getting ahead of Eric Spoelstra or Nick Nurse, like I shouldn't know what I think they're going to be doing because they're smarter than me at this.
Right.
We get a lot of that. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, and Miami's also just a really difficult team because they've had so many moving pieces this year. Like I tried to go back on the show this morning and look at previous games against Boston to see if maybe I could get anything out of the way Olynyk was used. And he played a lot of minutes in most of them, but you just had completely different groupings. Like when they played August 4th in the bubble, Olynyk started. So it's obviously you can throw that one out as far as trying to figure out what they're doing with Olynyk. In the game before that, you still had Myers Leonard playing. Like it's been a team that's had so many moving pieces this year. It's really tough to look and figure it out. So I'm basically just going with 13 to 15 minutes somewhere in there. Like if he plays 8, it's not shocking. If he plays 22, it's not shocking. But the thing with Olynyk is that he does produce at a high rate and he's so cheap. So if you do give him somewhere in the 14-minute range, he's still going to project as a pretty decent option at 3,500 on DraftKings. He's also been extremely productive in the playoffs so far. He has a usage rate up over 20%. He's averaging, I think, I'm pulling it up now, but I think it was off the top of my head, like 1.25 DraftKings points per minute in the playoffs so far. Yeah. So it's similar to Robert Williams, where the reason I'm willing to go to these guys is if I'm wrong and they play more than I expect, they win the slate. Yep. If I'm wrong and they play less than I expect, I'm in trouble, but it's still a really cheap player. And if they play the amount that I'm expecting them to, they're still good point per dollar plays that open up a lot for them. So if they were getting a lot of ownership, I'd feel differently. The fact that they're not means that I can get to a lot of Tatum and Kawhi and Jokic and the highest scorers on this slate while still having good point per minute value.
Thoughts on Kendrick Nunn then? A guy that I wouldn't be surprised to have a little bit of 8% owned right now. Do you have him in the rotation? I mean, This dude can play from anywhere from 0 to 20 minutes today, and I'd be like, yeah, that seems about right.
Yeah, I have him in the rotation too. I did get a lot less of him than basically all of the other really cheap guys. Okay. I gave him 15 minutes.
Okay.
I have him at 10.9 DraftKings points. Alex has him at 9.3. He's another one that the minutes certainly can be there. He played about 22 minutes last game. The thing that made it really difficult for me was, Hero's getting his minutes. Dragic is getting his. Jimmy Butler's getting his. Robinson, basically, you need Duncan Robinson to have another game where he plays like 14 minutes, I think, for Nunn to get 22 minutes. I don't anticipate that being the case. So while Nunn's salary does put him in that range where it's like, yeah, if I'm wrong and he plays more minutes, he can win a slate because he is a good enough fantasy producer. It's harder for me to kind of find those minutes than it is, and he doesn't produce at the same rate as guys like Olynyk. So I mean, if I'm playing 150 lineups, like right now I would have 5%. I could see going a little bit higher than that even on Nunn. But it's just also the guard positions are better than the power forward position for Olynyk. So I think that's why I'm favoring the other two guys more.
Wow. Got the Vincent Poirier question in chat, that's a doozy for the Eastern Conference Finals. 1,050 people in here, 131 likes. Not enough, guys. This is our final 2-game slate of the year. Let's jack that number up quite a bit. Let's show the baseball show after this how it's done. Hit that thumbs up. It helps us out a ton. Feel free to sum up the rest of Miami for you. Butler, Bam, Dragic, Crowder, Hero, Robinson. Anything stand out to you in that group of guys?
Not really. I think that it's a really efficiently priced team.
Yeah.
You're not going to be upset getting to some Bam. You're not going to be upset getting to some Butler. But I also think that there's guys at their respective salaries that are more appealing. Bam probably a more appealing play on FanDuel because of power forward. You obviously can go the route of just paying down for Porter and I'm drawing a blank on who the other cheap power forward is there. Crowder maybe.
Yeah.
But the position's pretty weak. So getting the raw points from Tice, Porter and Tice.
Yeah.
Getting the raw points from
Millsap.
What'd you say?
Millsap.
Yeah. that. I mean, if you're not playing Porter, sure.
Don't get me started.
The raw points there, since you have to roster 2 power forwards and it's a pretty barren position, is appealing. But on DraftKings, you do have a good value at center in Zubats. You have maybe a good value in Robert Williams. You have Jokic at the top. So the center position is a lot tougher to get to. And then just kind of looking in that price range, I think Bam is fine at 8,400, but I'd rather get to Paul George, for example. You have some guys on Boston like Kemba that are cheaper and project similarly. So I think it's just pretty efficient pricing on all of Butler, Bam, Dragic, Hero, Crowder. Like nobody really stands out.
Any interest in Robinson? He's kind of the wild card in this scenario.
It's just so difficult for me to get there. I mean, I gave him 25 minutes. He's averaging 26 for the playoffs. The problem is just that he really does one thing, and it's shoot threes. It's not even, you can't even say like the one thing he does is score, because he doesn't really pull in points normally unless he's shooting like 7 or 8 from 3. But we've just seen over and over and over again that he's not closing these games. Tyler Hero is closing. And, really, it seems like it's regardless of how well Robinson's shooting. He hasn't been able to shoot his way to the game, really. The one game where he played 39 minutes was still in like 3 quarters. So it's really tough to give him enough minutes for me to really want him when you're talking about someone that has like a 16 to 17% usage rate and isn't contributing anything else and has basically no floor on his minute. It's just really, really tough for me to get to that, especially like he's cheap, but Tyler Hero is only $900 more on DraftKings. I don't think it's that tough to find the money for Hero, who I have projected a lot better because of the minutes.
Same. I have, just over 5 fantasy points higher. It's a pretty big gap. Any final thoughts on Celtics Heat?
No, I think that's about it. Other than the value, it seems like I'm mostly just coming in around the field. Wow. I was going to say I'm coming in around the field on guys. I'm essentially just not getting Jimmy Butler and Bam on DraftKings.
I don't have either of them.
Yeah.
You ready to lose some money tonight, brother?
Yeah, it looks like just kind of.
We just got an ownership update 9 minutes ago.
Okay. So I haven't plugged that one in, obviously, since I just found out about it. But with the prior ownership, it looked like my 3 biggest fades on DraftKings were Bam, Butler, and Jamal Murray.
Bam, Butler. For me, I have less than 10% of both guys. Dragic as well. That makes me feel a little bit nervous. I don't want to not have all of them. Stands to reason like one of them plays decently, but it's kind of a testament to how much Kawhi, which is what I'll get to. But first, I got to hit you with one final prop. Jimmy Butler over under 20.5 points, courtesy of No House Advantage.
I have 20.8.
There you go.
Makes me feel like my projections are pretty good so far.
Yeah, you're pretty dialed in. I think you guys should go check out No House Advantage. They are the sponsor of this show. It's not just your typical DFS outcome. You're trying to pick props. You can go through each individual player for today's games, and they're going to offer you different props for different players. I touched on the Jason Tatum prop before. I just touched on the Jimmy Butler points prop. I'm going to touch on 2 more props from the Denver and the Clippers game. You guys can use the promo code Awesemo when signing up. Get $20 in a free play on your first deposit. And if you refer a friend, you can get another $5 on their first deposit. I love looking at props. I definitely love looking at props when I'm talking to Adam. It makes me feel slightly smarter. It's a great time for me. You guys should check it out as well. So go to No House Advantage, check out what they've got to offer, and check out our free content today. NBA projections, MLB top stacks, and the PGA top golfers. PGA top golfers for the U.S. Open, which is kicking off on Thursday, and by all accounts is going to be a complete tire fire for 4 days. I cannot wait to see it. I don't know if you guys are into golf or not. Some videos going around where you toss a ball up to the top edge of the green. It rolls like a full 60 yards back off of the green. It is going to be amazing to watch. These guys are going to play like we play. And by we, I mean all of us collectively that are bad at golf. Cannot wait.
All right, so I got a question before we go to the next game.
Okay.
Can you hear my dogs losing their collective minds in the background?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to go shut them up then.
Okay. Uh-oh. Are you going to kill those dogs?
No, but a dog just walked by and I'm the only one home, so they're just, they got quiet on their own. Wow.
I was going to say, it wasn't nearly as bad. Like, I only heard it because you asked.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, they actually got quiet on their own, which never happens.
I'm going to go shut those dogs in a garbage bag in the backyard.
Well, they if like they don't know I'm home, like one of them starts howling and then they just start like playing off of each other. And normally they go for until I go like play with them. So fair. I thought they were just not going to stop.
All right, so we've got about 20 minutes to go. Adam and I are going to get out of here at about 6:15, turn this one over to the MLB Live Before Law crew and finish off our lineups. So let's dive into it now. Clippers and Nuggets. Clippers 7.5-point favorites. We will start on the Clippers side. First thing we got to do is look at the prop. Kawhi Leonard, 31.5 points.
I have 27.6.
Whoa, okay. So it looks like the under would be one of your main props. I have 30.2. You'd be pretty heavy on that prop. So I guess that begs the question, how do you feel about Kawhi Leonard today?
Love him. He still protects really, really well for me. I kind of mentioned it when we talked about Boston that I'm just getting to a ton of these expensive guys. Alex has him at 3.2. I have him at like 57 DraftKings points. It's
55
just,
for me, so splitting the difference, I guess.
Yeah, I think there's nothing really not to like here. He's playing huge minutes. The usage rate for the series so far is about 29%. He's got a 13% rebounding percentage, 27% assist percentage in this series. There's nothing and it's a game 7 that the Clippers need to win because, obviously because it's a game 7, but also would just be an absolutely brutal collapse. Like, I don't really see any reason not to love Kawhi here.
He is my second most exposed player as of right now. I'm cool with that.
Behind who?
We'll get to it.
Okay. So he's my highest, but there's one guy that he's close with. Oh, sorry, he's my second highest.
Is your other guy on the Clippers as well?
Actually, he's my third highest, and yes, they're both on the Clippers.
Is one of them Patrick Beverley?
Yes.
Whew, okay, well, Patrick Beverley is my most exposed player as of right now. Is Zubac your second, or is it Paul George?
Zubac.
Okay. I don't know what to do with that dude today. I can't get him right, man. Like, he's going to play 30 minutes and somehow become like a worse and worse fantasy player as he's out there. It's mind-boggling. Let's talk about it a little bit. I've got him in for 26 minutes. I think that I'm being pessimistic. With that said, he's already 49% owned. Does that give you pause at all?
Some. I have him at 28 minutes. Again, it's just a matter of, does he avoid foul trouble? Yeah. But the thing is that he's cheap and he produces at a better rate than most guys in that price range. So I have him at like 26 to 27 DraftKings points. I think Alex has him Alex is a little lower, like 24.5, but even at that projection, he's a pretty decent value at 4,800. The ownership, I think, factors in. Like, if I look at my absolute top lineups, like top ranked lineups, where I'm factoring in ownership, I'm getting to, Robert Williams over Zubac basically, but across 150, I'd be playing a ton of Zubac.
Yeah, I'm going to be pretty neutral on him. I'm okay with it. I still want to have him. He grades out really well for me. But if he really is 49% owned, which is the chalk play of the day, I think I'm going to be okay being a little bit lighter and then heavier on Beverly right now. I think it's easier to make the lineups being heavier on Beverly as well. How much Beverly do you have?
In the crunch I did before the show, I had him at 30 minutes. So if I didn't re-crunch, obviously, in the last 30 seconds, but cutting his projection back to 28 minutes, I have like 70% instead of 90.
How much Beverly?
80. Where'd he go? 90.
89.3 right here. So we're holding hands on that one. 73 on Kawhi, 60 on Jason Tatum. I'm a little bit lighter on Nikola Jokic, so I guess let's go there. 10K for him on DraftKings, 10-2 on FanDuel. Here's the prop for you. 41.5 points, rebounds, and assists for Nikola Jokic.
You said 41.5?
41.5.
46.4.
See, I have 42.3. I am not Team Jokic for today.
Actually, once I knocked the Zubac's projection a little bit, I have more Jokic than Kawhi now.
Okay, well, talk to me about it. That's a lot of Jokic. That's a lot of Kawhi as well. Both guys over 10K. What do you like about Jokic for today?
So I have him just behind Kawhi in terms of raw points. And obviously the salaries are really close. But I love the spot for Jokic. We talked a lot about how this series is kind of the exact opposite of that Utah series, where Utah had Gobert to kind of slow down Jokic, and they were essentially incapable of defending Jamal Murray. Exact opposite here, where you have some combination of Pat Beverly, Paul George, Kawhi, just chasing Jamal Murray around the floor, making life miserable for him. You've seen it result in his usage rate being down around 24.5% for the series. Jokic's usage in the series is at 31.6%. He's averaging 1.41 DraftKings points per minute. He's got a 29% assist percentage, which is just north of Jamal Murray's, and his rebounding percentage is at 18.5%. And he's playing 39 plus minutes. So he's just I think it's a spot where the biggest weakness that Denver can take advantage of is running their off is just feeding Jokic, running the offense through Jokic. Obviously, that's not something that they mind doing at all. It's just, to me, he has to play phenomenal for them to win this game. He's going to get every opportunity to do so. He's right up there with Kawhi as far as top projected players on the slate for me. And his ownership is about the same as Kawhi's as well. So just getting to tons of him and tons of Kawhi.
How often do you think Kawhi Leonard outscores Nikola Jokic on a slate like today? Because that's the question, right? You can only have one of them.
Right. So, I mean, looking at the way I have them projected, I would say it's like 50-50 because their standard deviations are about the same, and I have them projected about the same. Alex has Kawhi by 3 points, which would make me think I would guess something like 60-40.
Yeah, okay. We're in the same sort of ballpark there. I would say somewhere in that like 55 to 60-40, something in that neighborhood.
Yeah, I mean, if I think for sure that the way I make my lineups, if the ownership were not basically identical on these two, that I would just be flipping it, or not flipping it as far as like, because I have more aggregate ownership than the field does to them, but I would be like, if Jokic's ownership were 10 points higher than Leonard's, I would have more Leonard than Jokic.
So you have Jokic that far ahead of Jason Tatum in this spot. I guess that's really the tiebreaker here. I
have Jokic 6 points ahead of Tatum.
Okay. So that's really where the difference comes in, because I would be shocked if you have I'd be shocked if two of those three guys are in the winning lineup tonight. Maybe not shocked. That's probably not the best way to describe it, but like there's just so little at the bottom that you're going to have, like Beverly would have to go crazy. Somebody else relatively chalky, low end would have to go pretty crazy. I'm expecting to see one of those three guys at the top in the main lineup right now.
I think Kawhi. I agree with your point because the value is questionable. Like I'm kind of looking at my top ranked lineup right now, and it does like I have four high ceiling guys in it, and then I have four guys that are you're like praying that they don't just completely suck. But also, I think a lot as far as the construction of the winning lineup is going to come down to how competitive is the Clippers game down to the end. Like looking at my top lineup right now, I have six guys in it that are at least have the chance and then probably are closing in that game. If that game is competitive down to the end and it goes over its total, you could very easily need that whole grouping of like George, Leonard, Jokic.
I would be so surprised. That's so much salary.
But I mean, there's only with there only being two games, they can combine for 150 points just between those three guys. And Tatum obviously fits that too. He just doesn't correlate with them.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's going to be tight. You got to get that piece right. I'm pretty happy with the total exposure that I have to the trio. 153%. The public is at 110. So I'm happy to be over, but I'm not so far over that it's like a constant 2 of 3. I like that I'm largely just rotating through them. Dragic,
and what it comes
Butler,
down to
Robinson,
also,
Crowder, Adebayo, normal starters for the Heat.
Well, okay, yeah. And I'll say what it comes down to also is, to a large extent, how do those Kemba Walker, Jaylen Brown, Jimmy Butler guys do? If they hit their medium projections and go for like 38, 40 points, you're not really at a disadvantage by going like stars and scrubs and having a lot of money allocated to two or three guys. If one of those or two of those guys go for 55 points here, you're in a lot of trouble. So it kind of even comes down to, it just comes down to like how those games go as far as competitiveness goes. Like if Boston Miami is just kind of like a mad defensive game and whatever, then you're probably fine. I think allocating a lot of money to a couple of guys. If that game goes over by 10 points and is competitive down to the last second, you're probably in trouble.
Of the guys that play not center, largely the 3 and the 4, depending on which one I'm talking about, Michael Porter Jr., Jeremy Grant, Paul Millsap, who's the guy you need today?
I think it's Porter, especially at current ownership. I'm kind of surprised how low we have him projected as far as ownership goes right now. We have him at 18%. If that is the case in a half hour, I'll have a lot of Porter. We have Jeremy Grant getting 25%. I'd be under on him. Porter's minutes obviously been all over the place in this series. I think the last time you and I did a show together, we were both really high on him. He was coming off that 33-minute game, and then he went back to playing like 20 minutes. And I messaged
and then I was going to say, and then I got a DM where you called us both morons.
Yeah, I kind of felt stupid after that one because I didn't think I paid enough attention to, if you look at the rotations in this series, there's a really high frequency where Michael Porter Jr. is subbing in as Paul George is coming out. And I think it makes sense because obviously it's easier to have him on the floor when one of George or Leonard is on the bench. And the game where he played 33 minutes was the game where Paul George was in massive foul trouble and only played 26 minutes. So it wasn't, I don't think it was that surprising. And I kind of had overlooked it that in a game where George played his normal minutes, Porter went back to playing like 22. But then in their most recent game, you had Porter close again, played 26 minutes. George played 40. Kawhi played 41. There was nothing weird there. My assumption is that you get something like 26 for Porter, 22 for Millsap. I think the biggest risk to that is probably if Denver actually takes like a 5 to 10 point lead into the fourth quarter. And more importantly, for the last like 6 minutes of the game, I think you probably see Millsap out there over Porter. But
unless
I think
Porter's playing out of his mind,
right?
That's the only
unless he's,
and at which point then I'm happy,
right? But I mean, you're talking about a game where the Clippers are 7-point favorites. The most likely outcome is that the game is within reach, but the Nuggets are trailing in the fourth, and in that situation, you're going to want Porter out there. So, my best game, you're getting like 26 minutes for Porter, 22 for Millsap.
Is Millsap going to save the day again? The hero was that 5 or 6? I can't remember which game's which anymore. It was 5 or 6.
It was whichever game we were both high on Porter. So yeah, it was game 5. It was 2 games ago.
Yeah. Okay. Any other thoughts on Clippers Denver for right now? Any wholesale thoughts? Any thoughts in general for the entire slate?
So going back to the Gary Harris question at the top, he's only getting 28% ownership right now. I'd be getting a lot of him on DraftKings. He played 42 minutes last game. He's only 4,600. He's not good on a per minute basis, but if he's been, I have him in for 40 minutes. I have him at like that gets me like 23 points on him. Alex has him at about 21, and not a ton of ownership. I think that Harris ends up being a guy that I roster a lot of.
A large chunk of my top section of lineups all have 2 of 3 of those 3 expensive guys. So more than I was fully expecting.
Yeah.
Just wanted to
I think it makes sense.
I have a couple with 3 actually.
Really? Yeah.
What the hell do they look like?
Well, and I think it goes back to what I was saying at the top or at the beginning when we talked about Robert Williams with the value guys. Like if you were to just try and like kind of rearrange those lineups and say like, okay, I want to allocate more money to the upper mid range, get more Butler, get more Bam, whoever. You still have to. They're expensive enough. You still have to roster value guys. Yeah. You still have to go to like Gary Harris and Patrick Beverley and Jeremy Grant or whatever. I don't know that going from Jeremy Grant to Kelly Olynyk, for example, is scary enough that I don't want to go from Jimmy Butler to Jokic.
Yeah. I don't hate the 2 lineups that I have that have all 3.
No, I don't hate mine either. Like they're ugly as far as the value.
Beverly, Duncan Robinson, JaMychal Green, Robert Williams, Gary Harris, or Nunn, Harris, Millsap, Robert Williams, Patrick Beverly. So it's not ideal.
Right.
But and then I probably have like 90 of the lineups have 2 of the 3, and that feels pretty good to me.
Like my top lineup on DraftKings right now has Beverly, Harris, Olynyk, and Williams. Like that's terrifying to me, obviously. But it's not. But when I look at the rest, and you've got Porter, George, Leonard, and Jokic. Like, those guys can get me a combined 200 right there. And, I just need to run good on value, basically.
I have the Beverly Olynyk Williams piece out of that top one. I don't have the Harris piece.
Yeah.
Hero, Tatum, Murray, Leonard, Zubac. All right. We have 9 minutes to go until we're going to get out of here. 1,500 people, 266 likes. So please hit that thumbs up one last time for us so we can rub it in the face of the MLB hosts coming up immediately after us. Let's get some questions. YouTube chat, feel free to drop them in. Premium Slack, feel free to drop them in. I have my lineups crunched and I feel pretty good. So let's get some questions.
So
Adam gets a free 15 minutes at the end of this, so he won't even feel as scrambled.
Yeah. I was just to kind of see if to double check kind of what I was saying to be true. If I just take that top lineup and I take Kawhi Leonard and I go to Jimmy Butler, and then I try and upgrade, let's say Robert Williams, right? Yeah. So that I only have one of that Olynyk Williams pairing. The salary doesn't work out perfectly, but basically the point would be like the 2v2 becomes like Jimmy Butler plus Daniel Tice versus Kawhi Leonard plus, one of the cheap guys, Olynyk or Williams. I think they're close, obviously, but I don't feel so confident in Tice or Jeremy Grant or whoever you prefer in that range that I want to forego what could be, 60 points from Kawhi.
We're on the exact same page there. I'm opening up to like the more extremes of it. Let's see. Oh, one guy we didn't touch on before. Just full on thoughts. Do we see Cantor?
My assumption is no.
That's the same way I answered that question in Slack earlier, like word for word.
One other way that it's again like I guess I probably should have said I said that it wouldn't be surprising if Williams played 8 minutes. It wouldn't be surprising if Williams played 0. Yeah. I assume he's ahead of Cantor here. There's the reason that I do lean towards Williams is there's no Embiid type post presence on Miami. Like Bam scores in the paint a lot, but they're not posting Bam up, and that's where Cantor's most effective is in his post defense. Williams has problems defensively. Cantor has problems defending pick and roll, but Cantor is a good post defender. But Miami doesn't really have that Embiid type presence. And so my assumption until I see otherwise is that Williams is still ahead of him in the rotation. My assumption is that Williams basically is ahead of Cantor in the rotation, except for when they need Cantor's defense. We'll see if that works.
Olynyk or Williams?
I have a lot of both. I have more Olynyk since he's lower owned.
Yeah, it's all right. That's the second time that Vincent Poirier's name has been in this chat. I just assumed that it's his family that's here. That's what would have to happen. They would have to get COVID right now.
Williams gets hurt.
Both of them?
Yeah. But both Williams get hurt. Semi gets hurt.
Yeah. Cantor hurt.
Yeah, Poirier could, I guess, be ahead of Cantor. But
yeah, just either way, that's no. Unless they have him priced for the regular slate, like it would be a showdown slate, and he's like $300 right. Or something. No, thank you. I guess we didn't talk about it at all. Wanamaker. I hate that dude.
I hate him. I hate him so much.
I don't know anything about him personally. I don't have any.
I think his story is actually pretty cool. Good for him. I'm pretty sure he was just like an Italian league journeyman kind of guy, and then made it back to the NBA. But yeah, in DFS, I never get the guy right, regardless of who is in or out for Boston. I'd have 5% if the slate started right now on DraftKings. I wouldn't play him with Robert Williams. I think that the chances of both of those guys getting to the top of their minutes range is pretty low. So I'd have one or the other.
We got a question from the boss man. We didn't name all of the big men from the Celtics. Is it taco time? No, unless they have to defend an inbounds pass poorly. That's the only way that he's going to get out on the floor. I would happily eat tacos today. That would be great. What else we got? We'll get 1 or 2 more minutes, and then we'll get out of here. Make it a little bit easier for Jordan Klein to transition us over to the MLB show. Crowder or Porter Jr.?
Porter Jr. for me. Crowder's going to get more minutes. I think their median projections are similar. Me and Alex both have Crowder about 1 point higher than Porter. But right now we have Crowder at 24% ownership on DraftKings, Porter at 18. I think Porter has the higher ceiling. Like I don't want to say never, you're almost never seeing a game where it becomes the Jay Crowder show.
No, it's not possible. I mean, he could shoot the lights out, but it's not like Jay Crowder's creating. He's just getting left over.
The Jay Crowder show means Jay Crowder's being really efficient.
Yeah.
The Michael Porter show is Jamal Murray just kind of gets kicked into the corner and Michael Porter's taking pull-up threes and making them and creating, and that can happen. So just from a ceiling standpoint, and at least right now an ownership standpoint, I'd go Porter.
A lot of people letting us know that there is the narrative that today is Taco Tuesday.
That is true.
I've seen people make worse plays for other reasons. So
do
you start your lineup on FanDuel with Kawhi or Jokic?
That's definitely a better question for you.
To me, it's Kawhi because I think it's a lot easier to go to Zubac than it is to want to play Jeremy Grant and Jay Crowder or something along those lines.
That's what I was going to say. Like my first thought was a lot of the guys that I would want to play at center aren't centers, but you do have Zubac there. And if you don't play Kawhi, it means you're rostering at least one of Crowder Grant, which I mean is fine.
I mean, you only have Jaylen Brown, Jay Crowder, and Jeremy Grant as even feasible options today.
Right. But I mean, the flip side of that too is at center, you really only have Zubac. I mean, I guess Williams with blocks or Harrell could potentially get there, but it's kind of the same where if you don't roster one of those guys, you're drawing to needing one or two other guys that you have to have in your lineup. I guess I would lean towards Kawhi just because I do like Zubac more than I like Jeremy Grant, but
yeah, it's a tough question. All right, final question, and then we're going to get out of here. Turn it over to the baseball guys. So best of luck on your lineups tonight, guys. The final question will be, let's see. I don't see any good ones. Way to go.
It was a hell of a lead up to not have a question.
Well, Porter Jr., another Porter Jr. question. Porter Jr. or Tice?
It's basically the same answer for me. I have Tice projected a couple points, 2 points higher than Porter. Alex has Tice projected 2 points higher than Porter. Yeah. We have Tice getting 26% ownership on DraftKings, Porter getting 18. Porter's ceiling, his ability to take over a game, obviously is higher than Tice's is. It wouldn't take a lot. If the ownership, in the final ownership update, if Porter goes from 18% to 35%, maybe I get more Tice there. But as everything stands right now, it's Porter.
Tice or Crowder?
I'm going to just look at how much of each I have. I have more Tice. It's probably because he's a center. I also, he comes in a point higher than Crowder.
There it is, everybody. Best of luck. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for hitting that thumbs up. Do it one more time. 1,550 people in here. We're going to transition over to the MLB Live Before Lock show. Best of luck on this lovely 2-game slate. We don't get them anymore. This is definitely, I don't want to say definitely because I didn't think this one was happening either, but I don't see us having another 2-game NBA slate. So good luck. Enjoy the basketball tonight. Go Nuggets, whatever.
It is MLB live before lock time right here at Awesemo.com. Of course, I am Jason Floyd. That is Mr. Awesemo, Alex Baker. Alex, Alex Caruso, we'd like to call you over here as well. We got any rooting interest tonight in Clippers and Nuggets? I mean, are you scouting the game tonight for your boy there?
Well, I'm actually I'm probably going to be watching this Chicago Sky versus Connecticut Sun playoff game. Yeah, I'm excited to break down this WNBA slate with you. Who you got, Sky or Sun?
You're coming to the wrong person after WNBA. You're definitely coming to the wrong person. As I have literally this afternoon, it was okay. Let me get my NBA lineups in together, and then started doing my MLB lineups. And thankfully, I did not put any Giants or Mariners in my lineups because if you've not heard, that game their 2-game series has been postponed due to air quality. That was announced about 45 minutes ago.
Definitely make sure you uncheck that game if you're using Fantasy Cruncher, because I was seeing some of those players still in there. So obviously that game's not happening. Don't play players in that game. San Francisco versus Seattle.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I was when I did my initial crunch, I was getting a little bit of Tyler Anderson. So not necessarily a pitcher that I was at the top of my list of targeting today, but we're going to get talking about these pitchers, top pitchers, value pitchers, whatnot. Then after that, we'll talk about the top stacks for tonight, which, by the way, that is a free premium content right now up at Awesemo.com. Then the last 20 minutes or so, we will get into the questions. Leave those right now on YouTube. Also, leave those on the premium Slack account. We'll get to those as we do go on. As I always mention, just be sure to at me on Slack. It's a great way for me to be able to see it. But Alex, let's talk about the pitching matchups tonight. Obviously, before we get into the top pitching options salary-wise that we have out there, I want to ask you a little bit about Garcia going for the Yankees and in relation to his price point. He's $30 on Yahoo, $6,800 on DraftKings, but $8,900 on FanDuel.
Yeah, I mean, Davies Garcia has kind of been a nice surprise for the Yankees this year. He's gotten 6 strikeouts in 3 straight games, and that is pretty excellent. So he's got some good strikeout stuff. Today he's facing Toronto. They're a pretty decent team, but the Yankees are a nice favorite. So maybe DraftKings a little bit slower to adjust his price than FanDuel, because he looks like a good option.
Yeah, you got to imagine as an SP2 option on DraftKings, he's going to be that's going to be someone that people are looking to pivot to when they're looking to save some salary on DraftKings.
Yeah, I mean, you got to have one cheap pitcher on DraftKings, and we got 2 teams with outrageous totals today, Oakland and Atlanta. So I assume that a really popular build is going to be spending down at pitcher. I see Garcia in our ownership projections is 22%. He's about the 5th most popular pitcher. So that's definitely a good way to go tonight.
Yeah, and then I was just trying to look at in comparison to FanDuel, what we have him on FanDuel. As I kind of scroll down here, we have him 2.2%.
Yeah, so on FanDuel, maybe not tonight, but
yeah, but I mean, look, as we always say, if you're looking to be contrarian, man, that'd be a really contrarian pick out there. I mean, obviously, people are going to be looking at the top. Obviously, Darvish is going to be someone that everyone's going to be looking at. Flaherty is another one that we're seeing good ownership from. Are there some other of those 9K options that stick out to you?
Yeah, I think we got a bunch of great options tonight. So I noticed the most popular guy isn't in that range, so we'll get to him in a little bit. But I mean, we got Darvish, Jack Flaherty. We got. I guess those are the 2 popular guys on FanDuel that are kind of the spend ups, as well as Matt Boyd. Boyd has been having a rough year, but he's facing Kansas City today. So you got to think that maybe this is a good opportunity to get him while his stock is low.
Yeah, just looking at the ownership, obviously you're looking at that Astros. You've got great value there on DK at 6,600 for Jose. But man, drawing huge ownership.
Yeah, Urquidy here. I guess I'm really revealing myself as not watching these Astros games, but he's only pitched a few games. The main thing I saw is last game he threw about 80 pitches, so he's probably going to be able to go pretty deep tonight. He's cheap. He's a guy that gets good strikeouts. But the most important thing, he's facing Texas, and they're just terrible.
Yeah, it's Texas, Pittsburgh, always trying to target those pitchers in there. So that's definitely something that you got to look at there. Look at some other ones. Dane Dunning is going for the White Sox is another one, kind of, underneath those top pitchers on DK. If people are, that's someone to look out for. Is there some other ones, under that, 20% ownership that stick out to you?
Yeah, let me see who I'm getting to tonight. I guess most of my lineups have just handful of less power tonight than your average MLB team. They strike out more than average, and that is the opposite of a deadly combo. So maybe taking Boyd and Junis in this game of kind of the worst of the AL Central. This could be a good game for some value.
Yeah, I missed about half of what you said there, by the way. It was a weird sound going back to my ears, so I'm not sure exactly what that was, but yeah, I don't know if Jordan, it's something you hear on your end, but definitely getting some type of feedback back in my ears. So I don't know. I guess I'm sure if somebody's in the chat, they'll let us know if there's any issues coming to you from there. But it looks like it has gone away now in my ears. In terms of some other pitchers that are kind of sticking out to you, is there any low-end options that you're considering? Well, Alex, I think might be having a little issues on his end. We'll kind of, let you know about some of the free stuff that we do have going on over at Awesemo.com today, as we've got our top stacks tool is our free premium content today over at Awesemo.com. Here in a couple of minutes, we will be talking about those top stacks. Obviously, right now we're talking about those pitchers in terms of some of those top pitchers that are on the slate here tonight. We've talked about Yu Darvish. We've talked about Jack Flaherty. We have talked about Garcia. We've talked about a couple other. I don't know, Alex, if you're back with us now or not. If we can hear you. I believe Alex is back with us. But of course, as you can see right now, they're on the screen. Jordan does have it up there. Top stacks of the day is our free premium content over at Awesemo.com. So you definitely got to check that out on today's over there at Awesemo.com. Also, do want to let you know about our sponsor. That is Yahoo Daily Fantasy Sports. They're the most trusted name in fantasy sports. Yahoo DFS now includes CSV upload, CSV edit features for those looking to play multiple lines, make better choices. Choose Yahoo Daily Fantasy. If you want to play Yu Darvish tonight on Yahoo, that is $59. It's going to cost you on Yahoo. Some of the other top options on Yahoo: Flaherty, who is $47. Zach Davies, $43. Carlos Carrasco is $40.
All right, I think it should be fine, right? Okay.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah, I got you now.
All right, sorry about all the technical difficulties for everyone watching, but I'm ready. Jason and I are going to continue giving these picks.
So, let's talk a little bit about on Yahoo. Of course, they are our sponsor here of this show. $59 for you, Darvish. Is a price concerning on Yahoo for you? Or is it like, you know what? It's you, Darvish. The guy's playing tremendous this year. I got to lock him in.
Yeah, I think it's somewhere like it just depends if you're able to find the stacks you like with that, because he's definitely a top option tonight. Cleveland, they're a tough matchup. They don't strike out a ton, and they're about average as far as offense. So it's not really like the night is amazing to target Darvish, so it's not mandatory. But he's been having a terrific season. He gets a lot of strikeouts. He's at about 34% this year, which is exceptional. So, I mean, any night you can go for him, and tonight's as good as any.
Looking at some other options on Yahoo, maybe if you want to go down a little bit, I think you briefly touched on Matt Boyd a little bit. He is $34 over there. Dane Dunning, who we talked about a little bit, he's $33. Garcia, $30. Maybe if you're looking to go down and spend a little less money. In terms of value pitchers tonight, let's just say 8,000 under on DraftKings. Is there somebody that really sticks out to you? Is it a Dane Dunning? Obviously Garcia, we mentioned about him, 6,800. I guess that's kind of the easy answer. But is there somebody else that sticks out to you?
Man, I feel like you're queuing me up, but let me see if I'm pulling up my projections now to see if there's anyone, because once you go under 6K, that becomes pretty tough to find someone. I guess Garcia, Urquidy, Jacob Junis, those are all kind of guys in the 6 to 7K range that I'd feel comfortable with.
Yeah, I mean, Garcia, I definitely have him in a lineup. I'm not playing huge tonight. I've got about, several lineups in NBA, several lineups in MLB. Garcia was someone that I wanted to get to, particularly on DraftKings, just because of the price point. FanDuel, don't necessarily love the price, $8,900. When you're talking about, go up, 2,000 more, I'm right, you Darvish.
Yeah, FanDuel has been really interesting this year with how the salary cap is shook out, because they made no effort to really make it easy to build a lineup there. And the net result is that it makes it hard to go to the cheap pitchers, because you can get all the best bats without doing that. So I think that sticking to the best pitchers on FanDuel is usually a good idea.
And of course, now let's move over to the stacks for tonight. As I mentioned, over at Awesemo.com right now, today's free premium content for MLB is our top stacks tool. So when you're looking to build those lineups, you got to look at what we got over there right now at Awesemo.com. In terms of the top stacks, obviously everyone's going to look at the Oakland A's in Coors. That's I guess everyone's going to be wanting to put a stack there, but is there a portion of that A's lineup you like more than another portion?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, they have an absurd team total of 6.7, so I mean, they're definitely the top stack of the night. It looks like every single player in the lineup has decent ownership except for Jonah Heim, and he doesn't look like a very good player. So, I mean, honestly, I'd like to be able to tell you guys, go to these guys and don't go to some other guys, but it's going to be hard. I mean, Jake Lamb sticks out at 2,500 and 2,700 on DraftKings FanDuel as just being a guy that he's going to get any lines because he's cheap, not because he's good. So maybe you could get a little bit off the board if you avoid Lamb.
Yeah, just kind of looking at the lineups, for this game. I know when I was putting together some stacks, I was really going pretty heavy on that 1 through 5 Oakland stack, kind of mixing and matching there between those guys. I wasn't getting to a ton of Rockies. It was more A's. And I mean, you can see it right now on the screen. Everyone's going to be on the A's. So you definitely want to look at potential other stacks that, could score for you. Angels was coming up for me as well. I don't know what's your take on the Angels here tonight.
Yeah, I think we got them versus Arizona versus Madison Bumgarner. He's been atrocious this year. XFIP of 7.17. It's really, really bad. The Angels being in LA and being at home, that's not ideal for stacking. So I don't think that you really need the Angels, but they're definitely in the mix. I noticed that Mike Trout has really high ownership, but the other guys don't. So maybe the stack is a little bit lower on than it would indicate on top stacks.
Yeah, you look at Trout in the 3-hole. Right before him, Jared Walsh, left-handed bat, playing first base, and it's Rendon, Pujols, and I always hate rostering Justin Upton because this is not the Justin Upton of 3 or 4 years ago. But I do have him in an Angel stack though.
Yeah, they keep giving Upton like the good lineup spots, even though he's struggling. He does have a 16% ISO this year, which that's a little bit below average, but one of the factors you can look at for luck is BABIP. He's at 23.6 BABIP balls, batting average of balls in play, and the league average is 28. So that would indicate that maybe Upton hasn't been playing quite as bad as his fantasy points would indicate.
Of course, be sure to hit that thumbs up button right here on YouTube. That does help us out a lot. Be sure to hit that subscribe notification bell, let you know when new shows are live or have been posted. Another top stack today, the Atlanta Braves. Obviously you when I was putting together stacks, they were coming up a lot.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they're the second on the list here. They have a team total that's really high. Pulling up the matchup, they're going up against Tom Eshelman in Camden Yards. So I think that Tom Eshelman has been a little bit worse than average this year as far as XFIP. The thing I like about Atlanta is all the guys are appropriately priced, so I don't expect the ownership to be ridiculous on Atlanta. And that's why you see in my top stacks that I have them at 8.4% ownership on DraftKings, but 11% chance of being the top stack. So they're definitely a prime target for me today.
And I know I was, put Acuna in some stacks. Riley was coming up for me. I don't love taking guys at the bottom of the order, but obviously maybe they lead off an inning, then all of a sudden you get to the top of order. That was somebody that stuck out to me as well. In terms of some other stacks that stick out to you, the Mets obviously was a stack that I do like. They are going very left-handed heavy here today, going up against Jake Arrieta.
Yeah, so I think that that kind of right off the bat makes me think maybe there's a platoon risk here, but you do see that they have right-handed batters kind of mixed in, so that with that new 3-batter rule, maybe it won't be as bad as you think, but they definitely look like they got a great chance versus Arrieta. I mean, they're on the road, 5.5 team total. So I think that the Mets really stand out as a great option compared to the ownership tonight.
Another one, and we got a question about this team over in the YouTube chat, is the Cleveland Indians.
Well, they're going up against Darvish. So if you're going to the Indians, you're doing it for leverage, but you have to understand it's a very low percentage play, and the ownership's low too. So if Darvish was going to be very high owned, I think it could make sense. But right now, the ownership's pretty divided between different pitchers, so I don't see a ton of value in Cleveland.
Looking at some other teams that you mentioned about the Tigers and the Royals, the pitching side of it. What's your thoughts on the hitting side of this game?
I think the hitting's fine too. I mean, these pitchers they've been pretty weak at Boyd and Junis this year. Junis' xFIP's 5.2. Boyd has been at 4.6. So the values on this game look really good. And surprisingly, the ownership's not really on the game, especially the Tigers side. So I think that maybe you could get some Tigers and they'll be a little bit lower on than you might expect.
In terms of some, by the way, if you have a question about a stack, be sure to hit those up right now over in YouTube or on our premium Slack account. If maybe there's a team we have not discussed, we mentioned about the pitching side with the Astros going up against the Rangers. Do you like the bats on the Astros in that one?
I always feel like the Astros are priced up, which I kind of like because it's hard to get a stack that's cheap that has low ownership. And tonight's no exception. So Altuve and Brantley are really cheap and really popular, batting second and third. But then when you go below that to Bregman, Tucker, and Gurriel, these guys have a lot of talent, but the price is about where it should be. So I think you can build a low stack of the Astros tonight, and they're in a good spot.
Jeremiah has this question. This is a FanDuel question and a single entry question. Which stack would you start your lineup with?
Yeah, well, we have the top stacks for you today because I'll explain exactly how I would approach that using this tool. So I think if it was doing single entry, to me, the stack that looks the best is Atlanta. They got the second highest chance to be in the top stack, and their ownership is lower than that, which usually, like, the best stacks of the day are equal ownership or higher than they should be. And that's because, like, you get value from those teams as far as, like, cashing more when you stack a good team. So I think Atlanta would be my top, the way I'd start my lineup. And then, like, they're pretty high owned, so maybe I'll try to go to a sneakier stack. So I see we're going to need a stack with decent value, though, because Atlanta isn't a good value tonight. So that would make me think that maybe, like, St. Louis or Baltimore, like, could be good targets, but I'd have to see who fits with the lineup.
In terms of that person that's looking to play single entry, and maybe say they're new to DFS, maybe they're new to MLB DFS, what would be your best advice to them?
I think, like, the first thing I say is if you're doing single entry, that's really where you want to be, because what happens in DFS tournaments is that, like, all the pros are entering a ton of times, and that makes it tougher for everyone. So when you have single entry, that's mitigated a lot. So I definitely recommend, like, doing as many single entry tournaments as you can and not necessarily chasing the biggest tournaments. And then really, like, you have more time to, like, think of your lineup. So just coming up with, like, what you think the best strategy is for the slate, and then trying to, like, figure out the lineup that helps you execute it.
Daryl had asked, and this is another single entry FanDuel question. He said, what about going the reverse side of that Atlanta stack and going with an Orioles stack?
Yeah, I think they have a team total of 4.8, which is that's pretty good for them, honestly, because they're a rebuilding team going up against Huascar and Noah. I mean, that's not a matchup we're afraid of. The only thing with Baltimore is that their lineup is really, really bad. Like, pretty much everyone is below average power except for Ryan Mountcastle and Renato Nunez. But that's not going to make me shy away because that really is captured in their low prices. So they are a team I would take shots on tonight.
One of the stacks that we're seeing some good ownership on, the Diamondbacks.
Yeah, I mean, that would be kind of based on the top stacks tool, the one I would try to avoid tonight. They're in a good spot versus Julio Teheran, but the problem is, like, the pricing is just way off. It's way too low. And while that helps you make a stacked lineup, because this matchup versus Teheran is a good one, it's going to be really popular. And that's exactly what I'm looking for in a fade in MLB, because, like, the odds of any one team winning the slate for you are so low. Like, Arizona is only 5% to be the top stack based on my simulations. So I think you can get a big edge simply by fading teams that have a high chance of being the top value stack and really high ownership to go along with that.
Yeah, you look at the Angels, they're the betting favorite in that game, minus 143. Of course, you can go over to Awesemo.com, right at the top of the page, odds shopper, where you can go, price out where you want to make your bets at. So you got to check out that over at Awesemo.com, our odds shopper up there as well. Someone had, I think we talked a little bit about the Mets with the left-handed bats, but someone had asked about what your thoughts on the Phillies side of that one is.
pull that up. I need to really organize this better.
So just look at all right. I was gonna, obviously you look at the lineup. McCutchen leading off. Then it's Harper, Baum, Didi in the cleanup spot.
Okay, yeah, I think that there's some really good values, but it's really interesting because with the Philly lineup, you got Baum batting third, and he's really cheap at 2,700 at DraftKings. The bottom of the lineup is basically the minimum, the 6 through 9 hitters, and then you got Gregorius, Segura, and Harper that are expensive. So I think it's easy to build a lineup with the Phillies because you got that mix of value and expensive guys. But I wouldn't try to just cram in all the best values. I try to get one of Gregorius and Segura, even though they're kind of expensive, because that'll help you gain a little bit of leverage on the field.
We haven't mentioned the Yankees. We mentioned about Garcia pitching on the mound, but we've got the return of Giancarlo Stanton. He's batting fourth today. What's your take on the Yankees here? I mean, in terms of, obviously this is a team that's been rattled with injuries all year long, and now starting to get kind of healthy.
Yeah, you gotta like seeing Stanton come back. He's been a little bit unlucky with those injuries over the last couple of years, so glad that he's back in the lineup. They are priced up a lot tonight, which is good because you got a really good team at low ownership. They're facing Taijuan Walker. He's been a little bit below average. The only thing is that the Yankees are just not projected to score a ton of runs tonight. Their team total is 5.3, and a lot of that, I'm assuming, has to do with the weather. So it's not really optimal, but it's a good leverage spot in tournaments.
Josh brings up this question. He says, do you like Coors slates? I find myself fading Coors and winning more when Coors is not on the slate.
Yeah, that's like the eternal question in DFS baseball is like how much Coors affects the slate. Tonight, we see that with Oakland being such a huge favorite to be the top stack, and they're cheap. So they're like kind of the obvious best play. It's actually interesting, though, because on the other side, we got the Rockies, and they're not that popular. So they're going up against Sean Manaea. He's been pretty good this year at 3.75 xFIP. So I think the Rockies might be a little bit sneaky here, particularly on FanDuel. So just because the scores doesn't necessarily mean that everyone's going to be out.
Of course, be sure to hit that thumbs up button right here on YouTube. That does help us out a lot. Also, if you want to get access to all of our premium content, such as owner projections, the top pitchers tool, player projections, you got to sign up for an Awesemo Plus MLB weekly pass for $15.95. All you got to do is go to awesemo.com/join right now to sign up for an MLB weekly pass for $15.95. As I mentioned, get you those player projections, ownership projections, the top pitchers tool, and you can get access to that top stack tool, which, by the way, is free today. So if you're grinding away with those lineups, go over right now, awesemo.com. If you're not a premium member, top stack tool is free today. But last 20 minutes or so, Alex, we want to get into some listener questions. You can leave those on YouTube, or you can leave those in the premium Slack account. So we'll get to some of these questions.
Yeah, Jason, let me throw this question back to you, man. Do you like Coors slates?
Most times I would say no because of pricing.
Yeah.
Because I feel that when I want to roster one side or even both sides of the game, I feel like I've got to where are my value plays everywhere else. If like I'm taking a 4-man stack in the Coors game, how am I building the rest of my lineup? For me, it just comes down to roster construction. Is there a pitcher I really like on the slate? Like tonight, how do you build a Yu Darvish stack with like a 4-man A stack? That to me becomes the issue.
Yeah, I mean, it makes it hard to fit every one of the best plays in for sure, but
that's where Fantasy Cruncher comes in great for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially when you know how to kind of utilize it and limit your exposures. Like I was talking about this, I want to say on the MMA show on Saturday. Like do those dummy crunches, then go look at the ownership projections, and then start doing a compare and contrast, and then adjust your exposures.
Definitely. I mean, one of the best things you can do to start off a slate is just do a crunch to generate a bunch of lineups, and that helps you like see what's possible tonight. You know, what am I going to be competing against?
Literally, my dummy crunch is always 150 lineups. I throw in your projections, and I see what pops up. That's kind of where how I start my lineup builds.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I think that's a good way to kind of figure out what the night's going to be like, because most of us are working with projections that are same or not the same but similar. So it's like you're going to get similar lineups to most people who are building just by making a crunch. So right now, I just did a crunch, and I see I got a ton of Urquidy, a ton of Oakland, a bunch of Darvish and Flaherty. So it's like right away I know like who the popular players are going to be.
Yeah. Travis asked for SP1 option, Darvish or Flaherty.
I think I feel better about Darvish. Flaherty, his strikeout numbers are a lot worse this year than Darvish. Flaherty is about 25%. Darvish is at 34%. In addition, Flaherty has been a little bit injured. So I'm not as confident about Flaherty going deep in the game.
Over in a premium Slack, we got it says, I like the Royals righties against Boyd and the abysmal Tigers pin. What does Alex think of attacking a bullpen instead of a starting pitcher?
Yeah, I like it. I mean, the one thing I'd say about that is, like, most of the time, if your staff knocks out the starting pitcher like early, they're not going to be facing the best arms in the bullpen. They're going to be facing the worst because they're going to save best arms for high leverage situations. So if you're just looking at overall bullpen numbers, it may lead you to the wrong conclusion. I think that if your stack's doing well, they're going to see worse pitchers.
Trying to just find some other ones of questions by the way. Hit those up right now in YouTube. Greg says Garcia pitcher of the night. Look, we talked about a little earlier. Because of his price on the DraftKings, he's going to have decent ownership. So I think that's something to play into. But I mean, look, if he's going to be the pitcher of the night, he's going to be in the optimal on FanDuel.
Yeah, I mean, I think Garcia is kind of interesting because we don't have a lot of information about him. So he's been doing killer so far. Not a great matchup versus Toronto, though. So I don't think he really stands out on FanDuel.
In terms of were there any lineups where as you were kind of projecting the lineups up today, was there something that stuck out to you when the official lineup came in that maybe made you alter what you were doing?
Well, I think I mean honestly I didn't worry about too much, but looking at the guys I'm getting, I mean one thing I am quite aware of is Adalberto Mondesi had been really slow to start the year, but he's been on a tear. He's won a bunch of money for people. He's back second. So I think that's one guy who that bump in the order is going to make him a lot more valuable. The other guy is Josh Rojas for the Diamondbacks. He's banked first, and he's cheap. That would be maybe a guy I'd fade because he's not like that good of a fantasy player, and people are only on him because he's cheap. So that could be a spot where maybe just not falling for the value could help.
Yeah, I mean, I just did a dummy crunch, and right as I look at the first four lineups, they all have the same pitching combination, which is probably going to be a popular pitching combination on DraftKings of you, Darvish, and Davi Garcia. And that's something you have to take into account as well. Of what's if you're playing on DraftKings of, okay, I know that combination is going to be popular tonight.
For sure, yeah, I think that's huge because if you have the same two pitchers as a lot of people, that does kind of put you in the same line of construction as a lot of other people too. So one thing you can do is you can sorry, I got my train of thought was lost a little bit. You want maybe to pair like a high owned pitcher with a lower owned pitcher, and that will get you a more unique lineup.
Over in Premium Slack, I got to mention here, says Nolan Arenado hasn't been good versus left-handers this year. Any reason for this?
I mean, the answer almost certainly is no. I'm not like huge on the platoon splits because I feel like the implication is that someone's better at baseball versus certain players than others. So I just look at kind of the overall trend in the league, and that's right-handed bats are very good versus left-handed pitching. So I think that's what I'll count on tonight.
Joey wants to ask you about how you approach pitcher caps and not getting too much of one guy.
Yeah, I think I don't necessarily worry too much about the pitchers because I feel like pitchers are pretty consistent because they're facing a large number of bats every time. So about half the time they put up good results, and I'm pretty comfortable with high exposure to certain pitchers. So I do mix it up a lot more with batters than I do with pitchers.
Keith, I appreciate you in the super chat. He says, what do you think about a Cardinal stack with Flaherty and Darvish?
Well, Flaherty Darvish, I feel like maybe is not the most optimal pairing of pitchers because they're both pretty expensive. So I don't love it, but I mean, I think that let me see the Cardinals here. They do look like they're going to be a little bit sneaky, so I think that makes it work.
I mean, when you're talking on DraftKings at 9,400 for Flaherty, 11,300 for Darvish, what does your bats look like?
Exactly, yeah, and like as a general rule, like spending more on bats is better than spending more on pitching. Of course, when you factor in on the ownership, that's not necessarily the case always. So I think that it's not my favorite build, but if you really like the lineup you have, I don't think it's going to be super popular.
Yeah, I just go, let me do a dummy crunch. Let me lock these two pitchers in, see what it comes up with. The first one comes up is a Diamondbacks and a Angels stack.
Yeah, if you're going Diamondbacks, like I would definitely avoid that combo. Like I think that's a lot worse than if you have the Cardinals, which I think the Cardinals are enough off the board that like you're not going to overlap a lot. But there's going to be so many people that just start off with Darvish, Flaherty, and that will make it hard to get anyone but the Diamondbacks.
Yeah, I mean that's I guess more times than not, I'm always like, if I'm going with a high end pitcher, I got to find me a value pitcher. And we mentioned about Garcia, Urquidy for the Astros is another one that I think you would look at, but they're going to be popular. They're going to be two pitchers that people on DraftKings are going to be looking at.
For sure, yeah, I think that just like if you're going for a popular set pairing of pitchers, you don't want to also go popular with the stack. So as long as at least one of those things is a little bit off the board, I think you should be good.
Eric asked about your thoughts on Madison Bumgarner.
I mean, he's been bad this year. That's like the first thing that comes to my mind. And he had a bounce back here a little bit last year, I believe. But he hasn't had a long track record recently of being good. So I think that he's definitely not someone I would roster, and I'd probably be pretty happy if I had a lineup stacked against him.
But we got 10 minutes left here in MLB Live Before Lock. I do want to let you know about a promo that does end today. That is our Red Zone promo for a week of Awesemo Plus NFL. Just go right now to awesemo.com/join and sign up for an Awesemo Plus NFL weekly pass for 50% off. We use a promo code REDZONE at checkout. As I mentioned, this offer does expire today, so you got to take advantage of that offer. That is promo code REDZONE to get an Awesemo Plus NFL weekly pass, get all of our premium content, player projections, ownership projections, top stacks, and so much more. Awesemo.com/join. Josh says, pick one, Ozuna or Duvall.
Well, I think I don't know. I like Ozuna. He's a guy that's got some decent power. So I mean, I think either one's fine, to be honest.
I would prefer Ozuna. One of the reasons would be he's batting third as opposed to seventh.
Yeah, that's big. I mean, that could be an extra plate appearance, which
exactly that to me is the reason that I would look at him. And but yeah, as I mentioned, Brave stack is definitely a stack that is big on me. Let's see here. You got a home run pick of the night? We haven't done that yet. I wrote down 4 players. I got to make sure the last one's in the lineup, but I got 4 guys. 2 of them are 3 of them are pretty easy picks to go with. Not really a value pick, but is there someone that jumped out to you?
I'll go with Adalberto Mondesi. I mean, he's a guy that I love from fantasy because he has stolen base and power upside. Power hasn't been great this year, but I'm hoping he can get it going again.
I'm going to give you a high-end option and a low-end option for you. High-end option, Mike Trout. And on the low side, give me Kyle Calhoun, batting 4th for the D-backs.
Nice.
So we'll have to see as the night goes on of how good our picks are in terms of that one. By the way, if you do have any questions, be sure to put that right now in YouTube or in Slack. Someone mentions about a Houston stack.
Yeah, I think I like Houston tonight. They're a team that is flying under the radar a little bit, and they have a good matchup. So I think they're worth spending up for.
Do you think the Yankees are a sneaky stack?
Yes, I think the Yankees are really sneaky tonight because as far as like trying to optimize your projection, I have to admit they're pretty suboptimal, but we know like the Yankees have a ton of talent, and that's something that can have that upside to really win your GPP. So I'm definitely going to have some shots for the Yankees, especially we got Stanton back, so that's a pretty nice boost.
SJM over in Slack says Olsen, Bomb, Story, or Pavion Smith, Nolan, Simeon for cash. I would probably go the first side of that.
Nice. We actually are working on a tool to help make all those decisions, but for cash, I pretty much just try to maximize my projections. So Fantasy Cruncher helps out a lot with that.
Yeah, Fantasy Cruncher is something that when you guys sign up, add Fantasy Cruncher to your account. That's going to help you out a lot as well. In terms of as you look at our latest ownership projections, is there something that sticks out to you? Good, bad, indifferent? I mean, is there something that as you kind of look at, say on DraftKings, that you're like, okay, we're seeing some ownership kind of go down as we're getting closer to lock. Is there somebody that surprises you?
I saw the ownership for Jose Urquidy went down in our most recent update, so I think that is significant because he's a great play tonight. So that's something I like. And then the ownership of the Diamondbacks is just obscenely high, so that would be a big stand I'm taking tonight, is just not having a lot of stacks. I will mention, though, that I do kind of find that I'm ending up with one-offs of teams like the Diamondbacks because it's like they got such good value and they can complete your lineup, so I don't mind a one-off from the team.
One of the guys that I think you mentioned him before, Jose Rojas, who's leading off for the D-backs. He is he right now is the #1 ownership on FanDuel.
That is insane. Yeah, I mean, I think that would be someone I would avoid because it's just like the probability of a pitch or a hitter going off on any given day is very low. So if a lot of people are going to particular hitters, then that's an easy fade.
By the way, we are 5 minutes before lock, and just looking, Darvish, we've got him under 15% on FanDuel.
That's nice. Yeah, I like that. He is quite expensive on FanDuel, so I think it does hurt you as far as stacks, but if not many people are choosing that build, I think it's a great build.
In terms of some other things that before we kind of get out of here, a pitcher we haven't talked a lot about today would be Zach Davies.
Yeah, he's been surprisingly good this year. The matchup today isn't great though, so he's kind of flying under the radar. But if you want to really pick some really chalky teams as far as bats, then going off the board with a guy like Davies isn't the craziest thing in the world.
We've talked so much about Darvish. We haven't really talked about the other side of that game with Carrasco going for the Indians.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the Cubs this year have a really strong lineup. So Carrasco, he doesn't really stand out as a great play, but he's a really talented pitcher. So I wouldn't feel bad if I had him in the lineup.
Yeah, just trying to get some things. We haven't, we mentioned about Zach Davies. Haven't really talked about the Dodgers at all. And obviously, they're always a very popular team.
Yeah, that is surprising. I guess maybe the fact that we haven't talked about them means they're a little bit sneaky in it.
Yeah, let me just pull up their lineup for tonight. Mookie Betts leading off. Seager, Turner, Will Smith in the cleanup hole tonight, batting fourth. Then it's Cody Bellinger. Then maybe if you want to get sneaky to go to the end of that, AJ Pollock, Jock Peterson, Edwin Ruos leading up the hill in that one. Of course, the Padres. We always, you talk about Tatis and Machado. They're obviously going to be, but looking at some of those other bats, Will Myers had a great game the other day where he had 2 home runs. But that is, it's kind of surprising. Typically the Dodgers would be a team that we're talking a lot about.
Yeah, it's almost certainly just because they're playing in San Diego, because Zach Davies isn't like a tremendous pitcher. He's good, he's decent. But San Diego is one of the worst parks for bats, so I think that could be a reason to shy away from the Dodgers. But they do look like they're super low owned, partly due to high pricing. So I think that if you can find a way to make it work, I think it could be a good stack.
Of course, as we mentioned a couple of times today, the Top Stack tool is a free tool over at Awesemo.com today. We talked about, obviously, Oakland, playing Coors Field. They're going to be a highly owned stack. Arizona is coming in as a highly owned stack as well, if you want to go that route. Colorado's up there, but, one of the things I always like to look at is a top value percentage, and it's not coming in good for them.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that just means that if you make a lineup with Colorado, like your projection is not going to look great, but the way those stacks really pay off is on nights where you don't need as many points to win, because the amount you need to win varies so much in baseball that, like, if a team like Oakland has a big night, you're going to need like 250. But if it's Colorado that's winning the slate, you might only need 200.
I'll tell you that Yankee ownership really sticks out to me. I mean, when you talk about sneaky, they're definitely in that sneaky category tonight.
Yeah, you gotta like it any time you can get one of the best teams at low ownership like that. So I think the Yankees are worth taking some shots on.
Eric asked, is Manaea playable at all as a sneaky pitching option in Coors?
No, I mean, he's 8,100. From an objective standpoint, I'd say he's like one of the weakest pitchers tonight, to be honest, because the lineup Colorado's rolling out has about 15% lower strikeouts than average. And the problem is pitching in Coors, that hurts the strikeouts as well, just because of the density of air makes it harder to generate spin. So I think that I would avoid Manaea.
Of course, Alex, we have now reached lock. Good luck to everyone tonight playing MLB DFS. Alex, anything you want to mention before we get out of here?
Yeah, just thanks everyone for watching the stream and supporting the site. And I think we'll have some big MLB slates. So we saw today a pretty big slate, even though NBA was happening. And with football back, there's going to be a lot of people trying out some fancy MLB for the first time. So that'll be really fun. Make sure to subscribe, hit the notification bell so you can see when we're going live, because we got a lot of great content coming out.
And of course, I'll be back tomorrow for the MLB Strategy Show, 10 a.m. Eastern Time. So be sure to join us tomorrow morning. And that is going to do it for this edition of MLB Live Before Live.